Fruity crunches, bum bum, bum bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum bum. Dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun.
Do you crave honey and nut toasted oats in the morning? Well, don't you? You do, don't you? Yeah! Honey and nut toasted oats is part of a balanced daily breakfast with over 5,000% of your daily sugar intake needs. Honey and nut toasted oats is currently under supervision by the FDA and FBI research.
Welcome to the stream. That was just a little bit of nonsense from my youth. I like to start off the stream that way. And today's gonna be a pretty quick stream. Because I just want to. It's kind of the format that I want to go for. Is just to kind of show quick updates instead of getting deep into solving weird math stuff or debugging. And also, I got a lot of work to do. There is an event coming up called PAX, and then there's a side event called the GamesIndustry.biz Investment Summit that I'm going to, and I have meetings lined up with, I believe it's 6 publishers, and so I'm trying to get ready for that. I want to get a build ready that I can show off, as well as I need to practice my pitch. For Pet Planetoid, the game where you have your own planet, and it does all kinds of crazy simulations, and you get to watch it evolve from a primordial state to over billions of years to something that maybe supports life, maybe gets hit by a giant meteor, maybe both, and you just get to sit back and watch the planet you created evolve. As you can see, I need some work on that. So I have a couple of things that I updated. I did get some basic wind going, based on air pressure differences, which are ultimately based on temperature differences from the sun's heating. And just this morning I was trying to get a little bit of what's called adiabatic cooling to make it so that as air rises, it actually cools and hopefully will drop any moisture it has in the form of rain. And so I was just doing a quick test here, and at first I thought maybe it was kind of working, because I see this green stuff appear on the sides of the mountains. Thought, oh, maybe it's getting some rain, but I think it's actually just because it's facing away from the hot sun. And if we take a look here at the surface temperature, where is it? Surface temperature. It's really hot here. 340, 350 Kelvin is like hotter than can support life. Basically, it's pretty close to water's boiling point. And then down here, it's a little. Actually, it was cooler earlier. It's still kind of pretty warm, but it is a little warmer, and maybe a little wetter. Let me take a look here. Surface water. Not a huge difference really between. As you go down the slope, it gets drier, and I'm not sure if that's due to the what exactly. Probably just getting dried out by the sun, getting evaporated. But it looks like mostly kind of south-facing slopes are getting green because the north-facing slopes are just getting dried out by the sun. So I need a little work on that. But what's cool is if we take a look at the wind, I have this little wind velocity thing, and the wind can change quite suddenly, but generally speaking, our surfaces are getting hot, and that actually is creating low pressure and causing the wind to flow toward them. And I did even add a little Coriolis effect. So if we're in the northern hemisphere, I'm going to go ahead and actually change this to show air pressure. So right now it's pretty even. It's a little low on these slopes, a little high over here actually, where it's a little cooler, and a little low where it's warmer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a little bit of heat kind of out in the ocean here. And what that's going to do is ultimately it should make, ultimately it should make it kind of low pressure. So that blue means that it's kind of low pressure. The red is popping up because I'm probably just boiling a little bit of water actually. And you can see the pressure kind of blows toward it. And what's interesting is this is kind of near the equator, I think, so there might be less effect. Let me go a little higher, like up here. And it's not quite doing what I expected it to. Oh, there we go, a little bit. Over time, see how instead of going straight toward that blue spot, it's kind of going to the right there, and it's going to the left up here. And that should be due to the Coriolis effect. I was having a better example yesterday, I can almost basically get a swirling storm, except right in the middle here it kind of craps out, and I'm not getting enough sort of up and down velocity to kind of complete the circle. I'm not exact. I gotta debug that, see why that's going on. But well, now it's kind of the pressure low pressure spot kind of disappeared. But you should see this gradually shift toward. Let me just start a new one. So we turn on the visualization for air pressure, and then we start on just a little bit of heat, just a little bit. You want to be gentle with it. Maybe I was a little too eager there. And so we got our little. Well, now it's a high pressure zone, but pretty soon it'll be a low pressure zone. So wind is starting to flow toward it. And that wind is pretty low, so that's why I'm not seeing a lot of Coriolis effect. It's like well under a meter per second. If I can get some higher wind speeds, then we can see a lot more of the Coriolis effect. I'm not sure why the wind speeds are so slow. Maybe there's something. I was working on my other computer. You can see not much really. I was working on this on the other computer and it was working fine, so maybe there's some file that I didn't transfer over or something. But at least we have the air blowing toward the low pressure zones. So that's good. And so those are my big sort of changes. And what's cool is when I do kind of lay down a continent, let me lay down some land here. Like the land actually warms up faster than the water, which creates a low pressure zone, which creates wind actually blowing on land, kind of like in real life. Right, if I look at my visualization of the temperature, you can see that. Oh, and I should probably make the planet rotate a little bit to be a little realistic. So it's really warm over here because the sun's just been kind of on that all day. But now that I've got it rotating, that water will cool off. The land You can see the yellow is kind of warmer than the green, so the land is warmer than the ocean, and that should be creating a low pressure zone. With meteorologist Dan at this on the 6 o'clock news. Yeah, and that ultimately should be driving the wind towards it in time. It might take a little while because my wind kind of adjustment is kind of slow right now. But I could. Oh, you know why? Because I think the scene itself needs a little adjustment. Yeah, this needs to be way higher. So you see my wind speeds are getting higher. Things are kind of going toward that blue spot there. That is the reason for the season and the cause of the differences I was seeing, I do believe. I had to basically make this is kind of how many meters there are between the vertices on the planet right now. So that's kind of why that number's so high. We can see the wind blowing toward that sucker, and there's a big low pressure zone here. And what I could do is actually kind of tweak that, kind of help it along by putting some more heat there, and that should give us a nice strong low pressure zone. And actually you can see now, so the pressure is going towards it, but it is the Coriolis effect in effect. Yeah, you can see this arrow's kind of going off to the left a little on the top and off to the right a little on the bottom, but on the sides that rotational effect kind of dies and just kind of points straight in. So if I can get that working, I could basically get naturally occurring, storms and hurricanes, which would be pretty freaking cool. That is kind of what I want to have happen. And you can see all that wind here on the planet is creating some clouds, creating some evaporation along the kind of coastline, which is pretty cool. And so I need to tweak this a little bit, and then the big task for the rest of the day is actually kind of packaging it into sort of a playable build, something with a little bit of like an intro where you can set up your planet, and then tweak the timing so that it evolves over the right time scale throughout the day, because I gotta send that to a publisher. In case you haven't seen before, I have all these different visualizations. There are lines of elevation. Like you can look at how much water's in the air. You can see a lot of water evaporated right here along the edges of the island there. You could look at the relative humidity. So where it's green is kind of where it's raining. And got some life growing here, and as well as some areas that are just baked super hot. So that's basically what I wanted to show today. We can play with it a little bit. I want to end the stream about in 15 minutes. I was thinking of doing a half an hour stream today. Keep it short and sweet, and avoid getting too bogged down in any particular thing. But the basic idea I have is, so like right now we've got it looks like the sun is spinning around the planet, but actually the planet is rotating on its own axis, and the sun is kind of just this stationary directional light. Eventually that'll be replaced by an actual object in space, and the planet will move around it, but for right now that works well enough. And so what I need to get is for you to be able to, right now it's sort of the light rotated to simulate the effect of the planet's axis, but what I need to do is actually rotate the planet on this axis so that it could have seasons basically, and then move it around a sun. So I need to add something, and it's going to be really super ugly and basic at first, like just little boxes and things where we could say like enter the rotation of your planet's axis, and like how far it is from the star and that kind of thing. And then you can kind of just, and maybe a few other things you can tweak, and then you hit go, and then it goes, and you can sit back and check in and watch it evolve. But the idea is like you could rotate the planet's axis, like so. But as a player, and then I want to make builds for, obviously for Windows, for Mac, for those of you who have Mac. I want to get this in people's hands so they can play with it, give me feedback. And I was also thinking I'd make a build for a tablet, either an iPad or Android tablet, just so I can go and show it to people on the show floor at PAX or wherever I happen to be, because that's a lot more convenient than showing people on a laptop, even though the real target is on desktop computers, where you can just kind of have it running while you're working, do whatever. Having it for like iPad and large tablets, like as a user experience, is actually probably a pretty decent one. I don't know what the market for that is like. I know in general, like for example for phones, the market is really pretty crappy, where it's so saturated, and everything is expected to be basically free to play. That it's not really a market that I'm super excited about, because I know a lot of people look at this and they go, oh, that'd be cool to have on a phone. But the two big things there is I don't want to invest a lot of time and effort in a crappy market where the game's not going to get discovered or played or make any money that I can live on. And also the fact that if you're running on your phone, it's probably either it's gonna like just destroy your battery like running all the time, or you're gonna have to, your phone is gonna lock and it's just gonna sort of pause the app anyway. And then on top of that, because the simulation is so intense, right now it's running. If I zoom in here on the planet, you can see all these, and I'll turn off the clouds and the atmosphere so you can see just the planet. Like all these points has simulation going on at it. It's pretty, there's a lot going on. And if I run it on my one laptop that has an integrated GPU, then this number of points is okay. But if I go to the next level of subdivision, which has actually 4 times as many points, then it actually was dropping to about 40 FPS on that integrated laptop. So I'd have a lot of optimization to do, or keep it at a low resolution, actually be able to run on a phone or a tablet. Tablet should be okay, because at least at this resolution, I imagine the GPU in one of those is probably almost as good as like the integrated Intel GPU in my other laptop, but I'm not really sure. But yeah, looks like all my clouds kind of dissipated, and maybe the day will come and it'll cause some water to evaporate, and then night will come and cool the air and cause some clouds to form from that evaporated air. Because the whole point is it's very systemic, and it's trying to be as representative of real planetary systems as possible. Oh, and that's right, I turned the clouds off. That's why you don't see them. No, actually there's a lot of clouds. But yeah, what you see typically is the sun comes, warms everything up, which actually drops, it causes water to evaporate, but actually drops the relative humidity, because warm air can hold more water. And then night comes and cools it off, and the clouds form from that water that evaporated earlier. And so I feel pretty cool about like that actually working in that manner and it being very dynamic. There's still obviously a lot more to work on in the game. I need to get a lot more of a robust sort of life simulation. I can make a phone build easier to show than tablet. Yeah, the thing about that is I was watching this thing called 30 Things I Hate About Your Game Pitch, and it was from a guy who is in the business of funding games. Is that when you show people one of the things he mentioned is that 30 things he hates about your pitch is we were looking at it on your phone, because it's just kind of annoying to like have 2 grown-ass people kind of crowding around a little tiny phone screen. I will look at making a build just as sort of a last resort, but I think a tablet will be a lot more approachable for people to look at. Um, and I will bring my laptop as well. Annoyingly, so I have two laptops because I'm a crazy person. And one of them is a pretty good beefy laptop, and the other is but it's fairly heavy, and the battery life isn't so great. And I have another smaller, lighter one, but that one has started flicking out on me recently. It's really crazy. Here, I'll actually show you. So I found this crazy thing. So if I have a video like YouTube or like the Windows video player on screen, it looks fine most of the time, but certain things will make it start twitching. I don't know if you saw that craziness that appeared. And if I say I maximize this, before that was, maybe there's something about this window, but for example, if I just close this guy, oh, Twitch is open. That's probably why Twitch. Yeah, so it just starts going nuts. And it happened like a month after my warranty expired. But it looks like I can file a service claim with my credit card, which sometimes you have cool benefits on your credit cards that you don't know about. A friend told me about that. And then I bring the video back, and it's fine again. And so I can use this, but it's kind of not the best to show people because I'd hate to be showing them something and have they see this weird flickery screen. Max says, yeah, I think your analysis of the mobile market is accurate. Yeah, like that's just sort of a place I don't want to go. Like the PC market is already insanely crowded. You have, I don't know what it is at this point, probably like 40 games a day launching on Steam. And that mobile is even worse than that. Not to mention that most of the time what succeeds on mobile is a free-to-play game with a massive marketing budget. It's a very different type of game than the type of game I have here. And I really don't want to put... Not only do I think that's hard to financially succeed at, but I don't want to put free-to-play mechanics in this game. Like, I want it just to be a thing you have. And right now I'm thinking it's going to be a pretty low price point. If you look at games that are out there, for example, one of the games that I'm comparing it to is this game Mountain. Mountain is different in that it has very limited kind of interactivity. And it's not a real, like, I'm trying to be a fairly accurate physical simulation. This is kind of silliness with like coffee mugs flying into space, but it's in the same vein where you just kind of let it run on your desktop and you can check back in and see what happens. And you can see this guy was charging only $1 for it, but if you look at how many reviews it has and then kind of extrapolate from there how many copies are sold, typically I think the number of, like, the ratio of reviews to purchases is between 30 and 100 to 1. So let's just go with 50 to 1. That means that 500,000 people bought this, which means gross kind of revenue before Steam takes their cut is 500,000, and you can, you still talking several $100,000. So just because they charge a little bit of money, low price point, doesn't mean that they weren't able to make a little bit of cash. And then another one that I'm comparing it to, which is also quite different, but I kind of position this game as a cross between Mountain and something like Universe Sandbox. Because this is a little bit of a sandbox game where you can kind of just play with your planet if you want, or just let it run. And this game is, kind of just a crazy gravity simulator, basically. And that one I think costs $20 or $25, something like that. So very different games, very different price points. And they did just recently add a little bit of climate simulation to it, but it's not like a point-by-point kind of crazy dynamic weather simulation like I have. I think it's just applied kind of at a global scale. I read a blog post about it recently. And it's only on this sort of fixed Earth. But most of what you do is stuff like this. Let's line up a bunch of planets and then let them crash into each other, see what happens. And you can see all, like, the gravity of this, I guess Neptune maybe, is kind of pulling in all those asteroids around this Saturn-type planet. And so you just watch crazy stuff happen, basically. And people enjoy just playing with it. And see, and, it's not just crazy stuff. Like maybe you're trying to actually create a viable solar system or something. So two very different games, but they're kind of the closest touch points I can think of for what I'm trying to do with this game. Another one that I've mentioned a little bit, which sounds a little weird at first, is Far Cry. And not that this is an action shooter game, but if you remember Far Cry, and even actually Breath of the Wild has a lot of those dynamic simulations where like fire can spread and stuff, and creates sort of unexpected gameplay and results. And so I just think about all the systems that I'm trying to build into this and how they can interact and create a lot of unique stuff. So yeah, I think I would definitely price the game in between these two, more close to the mountain side of the spectrum. And yeah, that's kind of where the game is. So I'm gonna get cracking and try to just take a more look at the wind and the adiabatics and stuff, and I guess that's about it for now. Thanks for coming in. I will most likely be back at the same time tomorrow, but then for the rest of the week and until PAX ends, there probably won't be a stream. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, probably no stream. And then it'll pick back up next Tuesday. So tomorrow, Tuesday, yes, stream, and then basically skipping a week until the following Tuesday. And then I should have either some really good news or some sad news or some, I don't know, maybe news. I don't know. But thanks for coming in and watching, and I'm glad to have you on the journey here.